You've probably heard the saying about the face that launched 1,000 ships. Well, according to a former top NASA official, SpaceX wasn't launched by a face, it was launched by spit. Yeah, you heard that right. Everyone thinks this whole thing was born from a stroke of genius, a grand vision for Mars. But the real story, the one we're investigating today, actually starts with a moment of pure, raw disrespect.
So let's open up the case file. Our target, SpaceX. Now we're not just going to rehash the same old story you've heard a dozen times before. Nope. This is a full-blown financial investigation. We're going to follow the money, we're going to expose the real motives, and uncover the strategic secrets that turned a little Silicon Valley startup into an absolute global powerhouse. Here is our investigative roadmap. We're going to start with an insult, crack a hidden code, uncover an in-house conspiracy, look at a near-death experience, expose the real mission behind Starlink, and finally, meet the two people who make the whole machine run. Each one is a clue, a piece of the puzzle. Let's dive in.
Okay, first stop on our investigation, Moscow, back in 2001. Picture a young Elon Musk fresh off his big PayPal payday. But get this, he's not trying to build rockets. Not yet. He's actually trying to buy them. He wants to get his hands on some refurbished Russian ICBMs, yeah, actual missiles, to send a little greenhouse to Mars, maybe with some plants or mice inside.
But right away, there was a problem. A huge culture clash. You've got the old guard of the Russian space program, right? These are serious military-style guys. And in walks this 29-year-old from Silicon Valley talking about spreadsheets and business plans. They couldn't take him seriously. They'd sit around for hours drinking vodka and dismissively referring to him as Malchik, the little boy.
And here's where the entire case takes a sharp turn. The meetings were going absolutely nowhere. Musk keeps asking about the price, trying to negotiate, and the Russians are just getting more and more annoyed. Finally, one of the senior chief designers has had enough, and he literally spits on Musk's shoes. I mean, can you even imagine? It was the ultimate professional humiliation. And in that moment, everything changed. The mission was no longer about buying rockets. It was about building them. This wasn't just an insult. This was the motive.
Okay, so let's follow the evidence to the flight home from Moscow. Because this is where the first clue in SpaceX's financial strategy really appears. Musk is furious, he's empty-handed, and he does what a tech guy does. He opens a spreadsheet. The SpaceX revolution didn't start in a high-tech lab, it started with a calculation at 30,000 feet.
He used an approach called first principles thinking. Now, most people in an old industry like aerospace, they reason by analogy. They look at an existing rocket and say, okay, how can we make this 5% cheaper? But Musk asked a much more basic, almost childish question. What is a rocket actually made of?
And what he discovered on that spreadsheet was absolutely shocking. He broke a rocket down to its raw materials, aerospace-grade aluminum, titanium, copper, carbon fiber, and he calculated what they cost on the open market. The total? Just 2%. 2% of a finished rocket's typical price tag. Let that sink in for a second.
So here's the key takeaway. The rest of the industry was stuck making tiny improvements on old designs. Reasoning by analogy, Musk realized the astronomical price tag wasn't a law of physics. It was just years of inefficiency in manufacturing and bloated supply chains. That other 98%? That wasn't cost. That was waste and profit. And that was the opportunity.
This leads us right to the next layer of our investigation, the operational strategy. Because to capture that 98%, you couldn't just build a rocket. You had to build an entire industrial ecosystem from scratch. It's what we're calling the in-house conspiracy. And this chart just illustrates the sheer scale of it perfectly. While traditional aerospace companies are basically just integrators, they buy parts from hundreds of suppliers, SpaceX does the exact opposite. They manufacture nearly 85% of their components right there in their own factory. We're talking everything from the rocket engines down to the circuit boards.
The strategic advantages here are just immense. First, cost. By cutting out all the middlemen, they eliminate every single supplier profit margin. Second, control. They have total control over quality. And third, and this is maybe the most important, speed. When your engineers can literally walk across the factory floor and talk to the people building the part they just designed, you can move unbelievably fast. They can embrace this fail fast, iterate fast culture that is just impossible when you have a slow external supply chain.
But this radical approach, well, it almost led to total ruin.
Our investigation now takes us to 2008, the single most critical year in the company's entire history. At this point, SpaceX and Musk's other big gamble, Tesla, were both bleeding cash and teetering on the edge of complete and total collapse.
And just feel the suffocating pressure on this timeline. The first Falcon 1 launch in 2006, failure. The second in 2007, failure. The third in August of 2008, another heartbreaking failure. They had just enough cash and spare parts left for one final shot. A fourth failure wouldn't just be a setback, it would be game over.
Musk had burned through his entire fortune from the PayPal sale. He was going through an expensive divorce and was so broke he had to borrow money from friends just to pay his rent. He later described it as the worst year of my life. Then, on September 28th, they tried one last time. And it worked. The fourth launch was a perfect success, but they were still completely, totally out of money. And then came the Christmas miracle. On December 23rd, 2008, just 2 days before Christmas, the phone rings. It's NASA, and they tell him that SpaceX has just been awarded a massive $1.6 billion contract to resupply the International Space Station. Musk was so overwhelmed he apparently just blurted out, "I love you guys." That contract didn't just give the money, it literally saved the entire company.
So that NASA contract secured their survival for sure, but it doesn't explain their crazy valuation today or how they're going to achieve their ultimate goal. For that, our investigation has to follow the money, and that money trail leads directly to the company's most misunderstood project, Starlink. This right here is the real secret engine.
A lot of people think of Starlink as just a cool side project for SpaceX. It is not. Just look at these numbers. In 2024, Starlink became SpaceX's largest source of revenue by a huge margin, bringing in billions more than the launch business that made them famous in the first place.
And it's really just getting started. Projections show Starlink's annual revenue is on track to blow past $10 billion in 2025. You have to understand, it is a cash-generating machine. Once the satellites are up there, each new subscriber is almost pure profit. It's like a money printing press in orbit.
So here's the big reveal. The grand vision, the publicly stated mission, is Mars. But colonizing another planet is unimaginably expensive. Starlink is the answer. It's the pragmatic, hidden financial engine, a perpetual motion money machine orbiting the Earth, designed specifically to generate the immense recurring cash flow needed to fund Starship and make that multi-planetary dream a reality.
But there's one final secret to this whole financial puzzle. Because a grand vision and a brilliant financial model are completely worthless if you can't execute. And that brings us to the partnership at the very heart of SpaceX, the perfect balance between the public visionary and the quiet operator who makes it all work. While Elon Musk is the public face, the one setting the audacious goals and diving into the technical details, President and COO Gwynne Shotwell is the person who actually runs the company. She manages the day-to-day operations, she handles the critical customer relationships, and she's responsible for translating Musk's impossible vision into a stable, operational, and profitable reality. You really can't overstate her importance. She was instrumental in landing that life-saving NASA contract back in 2008. And as this quote from the head of NASA shows, her steady operational leadership is what gives critical partners the confidence to work with a company that's known for its aggressive risk-taking founder. She makes the impossible possible. So when you look at the whole picture, the real story of SpaceX isn't just about one visionary. It's a financial masterclass. It was built on turning an insult into motivation, deconstructing a problem down to its basic truths, creating an unfair competitive advantage, and then funding it all with a secret engine hiding in orbit. And it makes you wonder, what other industries are out there just assuming their high costs are a law of nature, just waiting for someone to come along, ignore all the rules, and rewrite them completely from scratch?